Hey everybody, it's Andy aka Max Writer, and we're trying something new today. So I've gotten I've printed out my first scenario that I published on DriveThruRPG through Miskatonic Repository, boom, and this isn't an original idea. I'm following up on a video I saw from RPG Imaginings. I will put a link in the description below. He did the same thing, and I thought it was a good idea. And we're going to take a quick look through the scenarios that I've published. I've noticed, unfortunately, that even though on the PDF it looks like the picture goes all the way to the edge, when it's actually printed out, the printer can't handle that. And so you end up with an edge around, which is a little disappointing, but I guess it's the limits to what printers can do. We're going to start today with the Pannikin Requiem. This is the first one that I published at DriveThruRPG. It was not the first planned one to be published. That one's going to be coming up. I'm going to try to put out one of these videos about once a week up until the beginning of March, when my next one is planned for publication, hopefully. And at that point, they'll come out as I put them up on DriveThruRPG. So let's get started. Now, I set this thing up so that you can just set it to publish or set it to print both sides of the paper, and it'll come out looking, hopefully, just like a finished product. The Pannikin Requiem, and as you can see, there we go. So the inside of the front covers are hobo signs. I drew these myself, although I did pull them from the symbol source book by Henry Dreyfuss, because I didn't know if that was public domain or not, so I drew them myself. We've got our cover page here with our Chaosium information at the bottom. There are a couple quotes on the first page, a picture of H.P. Lovecraft, and special thanks to my playtesters. We then move on to the good old table of contents. Had to have a little filler here, and I added a foreword so that the actual scenario begins on page 7. And that means that if you print this guy out and you don't want all of this stuff, you can start on page 7, print it out, and you'll have everything for the scenario, all the way up to whatever the close to the last pages. Now, in this case, you're going to be missing out a little bit because I think these hobo signs are kind of neat, and I think they're very useful. We start out with Pannikin Requiem, my introduction, and this was actually when I wrote it, March to May 2020. Then we've got our introduction and our keeper's information, which is kind of, there's a lot. Player's information is next, and then this is my first one, so I really hadn't hit my stride with how I wanted to lay things out. And normally I put the locale in first, and we'll discuss the locale. Local towns, that kind of thing. In this case, I jumped right into the scenario after we had our player's information. And one of the reasons I did this actually too was because I set the Pannikin Requiem up so that you can start from the very beginning. You can start before they know where to go, if you want to. Now that's of course optional. The keeper can decide to just narrow the search down immediately and get them to where all of this takes place. Or there are some very quick rules here for actually interrogating other people to try to find out where these missing hobos have gone. The locale is actually started on page 10 here with Delaware, New York. That's Delaware County, New York, and then some of the towns in the immediate vicinity, as well as information on the Bearston and Corbett Railroad, the Great Walton Fair, which can be important or a good place for the investigators to look for information. I had stumbled across the American Temperance Society, so I decided to have that involved as well. Then we get down to certain interviews. There are, in order to track down the person that you're looking for, you're going to have to be talking to several different people. But you can also go to the library if you wish. And once some information is found out, you can actually talk to somebody else who knows about it. Now, these are bullet points of the information that he can give you, so that the keeper can just give that information out any way he or she wishes. There are also some antagonists in this one as well, some hobos who aren't good people. And finally, the main way to get to where you want to go is going on the Bearston and Corbett Railroad. So we've got a couple of guys who are involved with that. Now, the whole premise of this scenario, and if you're playing this, you might want to tune out now. The whole premise is getting to this abandoned town, finding out what's going on there. In the meantime, other things can happen. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 additional things that might happen in the county, strange things that might help lead the the investigators where they need to go, which is the town of Sublimity eventually. I go into great detail on Sublimity with each and every building has been described, as well as talk of who is in each building and what they're doing and what's going on with them. You also have the Sublimity Fragments, which is a mythos tome, homemade mythos tome that's kind of a mishmash of a bunch of other mythos tomes, and the Church of Timeless Determination, which has another artifact in it, that a strange artifact that is more of a red herring than anything else. Finally, we've got, towards the end, is dealing with the organ grinder, who is the crux of the problem here, and how to possibly defeat him. This is a dangerous scenario, I'm not going to lie. The creature that's involved with this is very deadly and hard to kill. So unless your players have a plan, they're going to be in some big time trouble. At the end, we've got some sanity rewards, of course. I wrote up some very quick and dirty rules for the stock market crash. This takes place in August of 1929, and the stock market crash happens in October. So, in between those two dates, if you're continuing this as a campaign instead of a one-shot, then the stock market crash could affect your investigators. So so these are just some quick rules if you want to make it random, how the crash affects them. They lose their job. Do they go broke and penniless? Do they get by without any problems? What? My afterward and playtest notes tend to be a write-up of how it went for my original players when I ran that. We also have a short bibliography here. Then we get into non-player characters. Each one is detailed. There's only 4 main non-player characters, and then there is hold on. Then there's also the reanimated dead. I wrote that up as a type of a creature because it's slightly different from zombies and stuff from Call of Cthulhu. Next, we've got 3 potential NPCs who could be potentially helpful to the party. These guys are also written up in the back. We'll discuss that in a moment. Delaware County maps from an atlas of roughly that time period. And then you've got 2 sublimity maps of the town. One is unmarked, and you could use this. You could stick this up on, what's it called? The Roll20. You can put this on Roll20, and then your players can move around their little icons to wherever they want to go. There's also a keeper map, which has each of these village houses is marked. This could also be used on Roll20 or at the table, or if you're just playing over discard and using Theater of the Mind, they can say, well, let's head for building number 2. And that way you don't have to worry too much about where they're going. Several handouts for this one. We've got a couple from the library. We've got some newspaper articles, which I know would work best if you find some newsprint paper. I've got some that I use for mine. We have an 1880 map of the county, which also shows possibly where they need to go. A couple of other hobo signs handouts. And then we have the statement of Amos Jenkins. Now, this is Amos Jenkins from the front, who can give you some information. The guy I was talking about, who has it up here. It's bullet marked of all the important stuff. I got kind of creative, and I wrote him up a script. And the keeper can go with the script, or he can go with the bullet marks, whichever he or she prefers. And then we've got a couple of, this is scrap paper found in an abandoned house, and of course then there's a journal. That's always nice. I finish up with, I like to have larger pictures of all the NPCs, so here they are. And when I play at the table, I cut these out and then I hand them out so people can see who they're talking to, who they're dealing with. And again, same thing with a few of these, the items that they might find. If we finally end with 4 NPCs / pre-gens, these can be used as pre-gens for the scenario, or they can be used as filled out NPCs, either way you like it. And we finally end with, there's a few additional hobo signs. These wouldn't fit in the front. I did a little about the author because I wanted this to feel like a real product. And then here at the end, we've got the Pannikin Requiem back page. We're going to deal with this later. So there it is. There's the Pannikin Requiem. If you have an interest in buying it, it is at DriveThruRPG. I will put a link in the description below as well to the product. It has it's done okay. It hasn't sold a whole lot, but I think it's an interesting premise, and we had a lot of fun playing it. So that's what it looks like if you print it out. You could also play it straight from the PDF, however you're more comfortable. And there you have it. So thanks for watching, everybody. As always, I appreciate it, and I will talk to y'all next time.